this was a wipeout.
Yeah.
This was as one-sided a debate as you're going to see this side of the Trump-Biden debacle in June. It couldn't come at a better time because there is a resetting here in October as people are casting ballots. They need to frame this race up right. You're watching a lot of ads. You're hearing a lot of arguments. People are trying to muddy water on liabilities and whatever. But the basic framework needs to be crystal clear in the mind of most voters in order to get to 270 here for the Trump-Vance ticket. The framework that JD laid out is 100% accurate. It's lock steel. I mean, it is impossible to argue with.
I can read exactly what Walz is conveying. He has this like look of terror and shock, and he's like, Mayor Pete wasn't acting like this when he was playing JD in prep. What's happening? What's going on?
Mayor Pete didn't do
They
that.
tried to get Mayor Pete to act like he was JD, and they got a killer to show up on stage. He wasn't ready.
I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China.
He goes
during
back
the
for
democracy
more.
Protest went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
In governance.
It's like a Billy Madison.
And then he ends it by saying, yeah, I learned everything about government that I needed to know from the Chinese.
That couldn't be a bigger liability.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
So let's get back to this debate for a second. We've got some clips that I think sort of like set this up better than anything we can say. Can we go to clip 4, please, Spaghettis?
Honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
So this is like right out of the gate, right? And this is where I think for me, I mean, you mentioned that Walz was like,
Yeah, deer in the headlights.
yeah, like right before he gets hit by a semi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was like the whole, it didn't start well for him. But the contrast is the confidence on stage. The confidence. I mean, look, we've been saying, we said on Tuesday, I think people are going to be really surprised about what they see because they've been caricaturing this guy as something he's not. And like, well, just wait until you get him on stage and they can't filter out what it is that he's saying. He's pretty damn impressive. That is as impressive as it gets.
It was alpha energy from start to finish, and JD was very well prepared. You could tell he spent a lot of time. He took this debate seriously, and he came out with a huge, his momentum was incredible.
I can read that clip that we just saw. I can read exactly what Walz is conveying. He has this like look of terror and shock, and he's like, Mayor Pete wasn't acting like this when he was playing JD in prep. What's happening? What's going on?
Mayor Pete didn't do
They
that.
tried to get Mayor Pete to act like he was JD, and they got a killer to show up on stage. He wasn't ready.
Yeah.
He was not ready.
Just absolutely was not ready for that. But I mean, I don't know that they buy their own spin, right? They think
They do.
that JD
They drank
is
the
a
Kool-Aid.
limited candidate.
They drank
They
the Kool-Aid.
think that he's like a young guy fresh on the scene who's trying to like suck up to Donald Trump, and that's the only reason he's on this ticket. Like for those of us who know, hey, guy's got some horsepower, man.
Yep.
There's a reason Trump picked him, and we saw it right there. Silky smooth, under fire, ready to go. And he just, I mean, it was, like I said, it wasn't a debate. It was a dissection.
He also
took
did
that guy apart.
He also did very specifically what you were talking about on Tuesday's show, and I think, Duncan, you mentioned it too, which is drawing the contrast, reminding everyone that if you have a problem with the economy, if you're at all concerned about the direction of this economy, you got one person to blame, and it's not me, and it's not Donald Trump. Things were pretty good then.
Yeah. I mean, he did that better than Walz, in flying colors. Not just talking about the policy, drawing the contrast, but reinforcing the fact that Donald Trump had the job.
Right.
And we all remember Donald Trump's economy. Kamala Harris is currently the vice president, right? Like Tim Walz has to do the magic trick too that we've talked about, where you got to act like Kamala Harris is prepared to be president of the United States and also pretend like she isn't the current vice president of the United States.
Totally.
And so that he has a difficult job. Like JD was very genuine and real in that clip, because that is a tough magic trick to try to pull off.
It really is.
And JD time and time again throughout this debate would answer the question and then go to a proof point of Donald Trump's presidency, which that's how you get all the juice out of a VP debate, is you remind the voters of the value proposition of the election.
Yeah, no question about it. And I also thought, look, if you look back on the DNC convention and just the tenor of the speakers, the lineup of the speakers, the message of the speakers, their whole thing was to try to prevent the incumbency from landing upon them, right? And we've talked a lot about how you can present that argument and how you could better present that argument. Of course, that's been a battle back and forth on the airwaves in all these states that matter. But last night, in my view, was the best articulation of incumbency of Kamala Harris
Yeah.
that I had heard to date.
The closer that J.D. Vance did to end the debate,
Yes.
where he laid out on issue by issue, this is Kamala Harris's fault.
Yeah, he just stapled it to
Was
her
just
ass.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which was that was our advice before the debate, was do not let her claim the mantle of change agent. She is not change.
Right.
Donald Trump is change. And he's the best type of change. The change we know will work because he did the job before.
That's right.
No question about it. All right, we got another clip here. It goes to this point that Ashbrook was making in the anchors, which we all knew. Look, we all knew what was going to happen. You go to a major network, you got no audience, you're doing everything off the Democrat side. You got two moderators who I think Democrats would always be happy to debate in front of, and Republicans, once again, are like, we'll just take whatever you got just so we can debate. So this is what Democrats wanted. They got it. And in that, you get some moderator fact-checking, and you get some, thumb on the scale work. Well, JD wasn't having it. Let's look at clip 5.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Thank you so much for talking about the laws.
Yeah.
Oh, the laws.
Why are you bringing up bullshit?
How dare you debate at a debate? That was the the condescending tone of those moderators. It is funny, but you should be angry. Because they tried to pull a fast one on the American people and let it slip in after saying we're not going to fact check, and then they did this throughout the debate, and it was really annoying. Where they would do these articles of faith. I felt like I was in this liberal church where after people would talk, then they would clarify the thing on climate change or whatever. And
the climate change one was the one I caught.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago that'd be beyond the pale. It'd be a Candy Crowley moment. Now we just sort of we accept that as part of our discourse, and it's you have a debate. They're the debate. You are not the debate. Mm-hmm. Know what your job is. And
that's the thing is they were substantive. They were having a discussion right there, which is a huge deal. Yes, this app, Bill Melugin, who was on Twitter last night, who knows probably the crisis at the border better than anybody since he's there every day, was what J.D. Vance is saying is absolutely true. Once the Harris-Biden administration started using this app to instantly greenlight illegal immigration, this became a big problem. J.D. Vance is making so many American citizens who are going out to vote aware of this problem. Him and Tim Walz are having a discussion on this, and the moderator's like, "No, stop, please. Stop. We got to move on."
Stop.
Unbelievable.
We don't want to give up our leverage. I think it underscores another thing that he was doing here. The comfortability we talked about. But JD had this ability last night that is rare amongst any politicians, regardless of your skill set, on a national stage of a debate of this kind of import, which is he was listening.
Mm-hmm.
If you noticed,
Good point.
he was
Great
listening.
point.
So he listened to every answer. He listened to the moderators. Like so often you get into a point where you don't want to make a mistake and you've got your message and you know what you're supposed to say. You say it.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of like, all right, what else do I got here? You're sort of mental catalog.
A little tunnel vision.
It's, bro, it is the mark of someone who is absolutely prepared, absolutely confident in what he's going to say. And you can listen because you're not trying, like to your point, you're not trying to make sure that you get your memorized talking point that David Axelrod or Donna Brazile told you to say. It's like you have digested the information.
Yes.
You're completely unconflicted about the answer you're providing because you know it's right. And so you can listen to the people around you.
I think the other thing, and just back to your point on the first, section about common sense, like JD comes from a position of common sense. That makes it super easy for your answers to ring true to the audience. Because like that fact check or clarification or whatever of the procedure or law for these Haitian migrants in Springfield, okay, it's like a well actually. And it's like, yeah, but we've let in like 7 million people into this country illegally. Right. And like, that's the point I'm making. Right. So like, fuck off and shut up. You know what I mean? And like the American people know that. Like, you can't be like, well, these Haitian migrants have the right TPS report, so the border isn't open. And it's like, that is so fraudulent for every person who's watching that, who lives in America and knows what we've gone through in the last 4 years. One other point I would make on that, it happened again when J.D. Vance mentioned the housing shortage. And he was talking about the migrants, they're competing for housing with American citizens. And they did a follow-up fact check to be like, I mean, how would you know?
It was even worse than that. Walz.
Yeah,
said,
right.
What's your source on that? And they were like, hey, that's a good
excuse
point.
me.
What is your source?
What is your source? And he points out that the Federal Reserve said it in one of their studies. And not only that, like here's the other thing. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, to camera on national television when he announced he was cutting rates, pointed out that illegal immigration was ruining our economy. It was labor competition, housing, all of these. Look, we all saw that. We saw that 2 weeks ago.
Right. That's why drop rates.
And you're going to put yourself as the moderator into the debate to have him cite a source. Get the fuck out of here. It is the common sense thing. Oh my God, we let in 7 million people and suddenly scarce resources are more scarce.
What's your source on that?
Like you don't need an economic metric study to find out that scarce resources are more scarce with more people. That is just like basic economics.
2 more things on that. One is I found it hilarious that later on in the debate they actually cited the Federal Reserve study that they were talking about. When they said, "What's your source on that?" Completely hilarious.
It's common sense. When your politics is moored by common sense, it's very easy to be authentic. Yeah. Because it's straightforward.
Because you're just saying it. The second one that I thought was interesting is that they were talking about a deep liability that we talked a lot about on Tuesday is this administration's response to the storms in the Southeast and the hurricane and whatnot. And rather than just sort of taking it from a response standpoint of what you would do and how could you do it better, they took it from the climate change angle.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, granting that premise is wild.
Yeah.
Right? That like, you drive a F-150, so therefore hurricanes upon you.
Yeah,
right. Which is what they're saying.
But nobody ever says, "Oh, the Green New Deal passed, and yet we have a hurricane." I thought that was supposed to solve the hurricane problem.
But it's a connection without a connective tissue,
right?
And they just blow through it.
Yep.
And then at the end, like JD gives a valiant answer to it. And at the end, they're like, well, most scientists agree that climate change is happening. And it was like, whoa, that wasn't
Articles of faith.
That wasn't even part of the discussion.
It was apropos.
It was like they had put that in there in the hopes that he would basically talk about like climate hoax or something. But he wasn't. He was talking about the problem that they asked about.
And the beauty of the whole climate scam is if you're a scientist looking for a grant, there's probably some Soros 501c that's going to write you a check if you say, actually climate change will kill us all in 5 years.
Well,
that's why you're able to say, most scientists agree. Look, if you look at any chart that these idiots have tried citing, Al Gore, when he had Inconvenient Truth, what is that, 25 years ago now? Yeah. He was like, in 5 years, the polarized caps are going to be gone. They're still here. They're always wrong, but these journals go out there and they're like, actually fact check climate change is right. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and it's like, the other thing about it is they tried to like box him in on the climate change hoax thing, and they were like, Donald Trump says it's a hoax, and it's like, and JD is just a masterful job of redirecting the question and being like, well, if Kamala Harris believed her own climate change policy, then like, why is her policy forcing, I don't know, poor kids in Africa to mine lithium and us to have dirty energy from China?
It was the best turnabout.
Like if you believed in clean energy, you would want more energy in the cleanest energy economy in the world, the United States of America.
Yeah, which is, again, totally self-evident.
It's more the common sense thing. It's like, if you thought the sea levels were going to rise, Barack Obama, why did you build the $17 million house in Martha's Vineyard on the coast? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's so good. And he's just as cool as the other side of the pillow the whole time, I mean, just, all right, so that's JD side. Walz. I don't know if it's going to be determinative that they didn't pick Josh Shapiro, but it may well be.
Yeah.
It may well be. And one of those deals we saw in the economy right off the top. The other one is this guy's resume embellishment, which he's largely gotten away with in the mainstream media and would entirely have if not for JD pointing this out every single time. But, lo and behold, the moderators have to even it up just a skosh. So they decide to ask him about his lie, essentially, that he was at Tiananmen Square in China as the protests were going down. Look at this nonsense. Clip 6.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. The
Chinese do know who he is.
I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China.
He goes back for more.
Protest went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
In governance.
It's like a Billy Madison.
And then he ends it by saying, yeah, I learned everything about government that I needed to know from the Chinese.
That couldn't be a bigger liability.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the Great Walls of China. That's what I'm going to call this guy going forward.
The Great Walls of China.
So they were like, okay, just move on, bro. This is going really bad. And he's like, and another thing, I learned about governance from China. And he was like, everyone knows I'm a dumb man. It's like,
I grew up in Nebraska, and I'm proud of that service because growing up it's tough. It's a service. It's a service to the people of Nebraska that I grew up there.
This is definitely a situation where they knew this question was coming, right? Like the news had broke, and so they clearly over-prepared him in debate prep for this. And they were like, kill clock. Like tell your bio and tell your,
See
rural,
if you can get away with it.
Right, rural Nebraska roots, and like that will offset the China thing, and
they'll run out of time.
I screwed up, and they'll run out of time. And like that was his goal. But in that, he like forgot some waypoints along the story where he's talking about riding bicycles and street lamps and says, I'm proud of my service before he gets to the part of the bit about,
that's about
I served in the National Guard.
Yeah.
Right. So he got the order all wrong in his.
He's proud of his service riding bicycles until the lights come on. Like, Maybe he is right. He is an idiot.
Yeah, but I just couldn't. The whole thing is just it's so bad.
It's so bad.
But then his direct refutation is based on the fact that he says he was there in August.
Yeah.
So he says, oh, it was the summer.
I misspoke.
So this is like, you know, we joke, and Josh always points out that he's kind of like Tommy Flanagan, the pathological liars anonymous, the guy that John Lovitz played on Saturday Night Live.
That's it. That's the ticket.
And that's what I heard when he said, yeah, it was the summer, right? That's what I said.
I said this is all I said. It's what I said. Yeah, that's it. No, but it reminds you a little bit of all of the coaching that they had with Kamala Harris when it came to like either the economy or the border. It always started out like, well, I grew up in a middle class household. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with my paycheck?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There was never an answer for anything that she provided in the debate against Donald Trump. And it's like they're like, well, I don't know. She got away with it. So maybe we horse collar this thing into his lies about his resume, and he can just talk about growing up with streetlights.
And you saw Margaret Brennan like wince when she was like, God, he's a dumb man. She's like,
how am I going to fix this?
But what's the answer?
Right. They're all depending on me now.
Here's another one where it'd be like a little loosened language, right? And Democrats always talk about, oh, it's fun. It's like a, you know, it's like what they said about Joe Biden. Well, it's just colloquial and he's folksy and he's just, you know, it's not precise all the time, but that's okay. People get that. I'm not sure they get this one. Clip 7.
So I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to.
And then I was an NRA guy. I love guns so much. I was friends with school shooters. Get out of here.
Tim Walz is like, that quiet kid in the back of the class was like, teacher, you're cool. Don't show up to class tomorrow. And he helped me out. What the fuck? This guy's, I understand he's from the school shooters. Did that just happen on a debate stage? Like, Kamala's prep team must have just, like, punched the wall at that moment.
It's
Like,
way too much.
Did he
dude.
just say he's friends with school shooters?
He sure did.
It's just, I mean,
It's clear as day.
Friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA.
I'll go back to what I said at the top. Joe Biden is old, and Kamala Harris is dumb, and Tim Walz happens to be both.
Old and dumb.
That is very funny.
It's so good. So look, I mean, this was a wipeout.
Yeah.
This was as one-sided a debate as you're going to see this side of the Trump-Biden debacle in June. It couldn't come at a better time because there's a resetting here in October as people are casting ballots. They need to frame this race up right. You're watching a lot of ads. You're hearing a lot of arguments. People are trying to muddy water on liabilities and whatever. But the basic framework needs to be crystal clear in the mind of most voters in order to get to 270 here for the Trump-Vance ticket. The framework that JD laid out is 100% accurate. It's lock steel. I mean, it is impossible to argue with. She is in charge of all of the problems. If she has all these ideas, where were they? Mm-hmm. You know, and is it this guy that you're going to try? And by the way, the biggest liability that any Republican taking a stage in the last 2 years has is the question about abortion and how you handle it. He won the abortion section.
It's unreal.
JD Vance won the abortion section to the point where Tim Walz at one point turned over and started nodding his head.
I saw that.
Nodding his head. Like, this is, I can only imagine what the Kamala Harris people were there.
They're like,
abortion?
make him stop nodding.
On abortion, you're nodding your head? Stop nodding.
Yeah, I mean, if they
must
can,
have been a panic.
if the Trump team can find a way to put that in an ad, I think it would be good defense on an issue that's tough for us.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, one other thing I want to say, and I know I'm just sort of beating a dead horse on I hated these moderators, but like when the moderator was like, JD Vance, you supported a national ban on abortion after 15 weeks. And it's like, wait, so hold on. So we're calling every regulation of
national
abortion a national ban now.
If federal legislation is a national ban.
Imagine a moderator or a journalist saying, Well, you want a national ban on guns because you want to get rid of like drum magazines on assault rifles.
Yeah.
Like that's
It's the same. It's the same.
That's the same.
Yeah.
Right? It's like every framing of an issue or question was so loaded against J.D. Vance, and he still found a way to rise above. All three of them.
Never let it get to him. It was just as cool,
Yeah.
calm as you could get, and he helped.
Because I could never do this, dude. My fuse is so short. I
You'd be
would have just
tipping
been
over the
screaming.
lectern.
Yeah.
Just like in their face.
the old man. Call whatever you want.
What, is that in your talking points? Did the Democrats give you those talking points?
Like, hey, let's go backstage and see if we can get you a podium too. You can come up here and debate me as well. Unbelievable.
Truly amazing. It was a one-sided ordeal, and with that, I think we did it.
So, until next time, man, keep the faith, hold the line, and on the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.